Hey, welcome everybody. This is Brett Merrill with Career Services at Weber State University. We welcome you to our first webinar on our Zoom Career Bites. Weber State University is hosting this webinar for our students, for our alumni, and any other guests in the community that may join us. We're excited to have this program going. It's a series of discussions that we'll have every Wednesday from 12 to 12:30. We'll have a different career expert, business executive that will be presenting upon a topic. And these topics are set up so that they can help you to sharpen the saw, help you to develop those skills you need to go and win in the interviews, get your resume right, learn how to position and brand yourself. So the link that you use today to join with us is the same link that you can use each week to join for that presentation. And as you watch it, those of you that are familiar with the Zoom, you probably already have this, but in your top right-hand corner is where you can manage the speaker view. So if you want to be able to focus in on our speaker, Kent Struling, which I introduce in just a moment, that will allow you to do it. If you have questions, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of the page that you can then submit your questions. And after Kent presents, which will be about 30 minutes, then we'll have a short Q&A session. And I'll be tracking the questions and trying to distill them down. And then I'll ask Kent at the end of his presentation. But this is a great program. We hope that you will join us, that you'll tell other people about this, so that they can get the expertise and they can listen from these incredible experts. So today we are privileged to hear from Kent Struling. He's the Senior Vice President of Human Resources at America First Credit Union. America First Credit Union has been, for a long time, been a great partner with Weber State University. They've employed hundreds of our students while they're going to school. We have a lot of alumni that are working there. They really open the doors and help students and alumni develop those skills. We value them very highly. Ken is the Senior Vice President of Human Resources at American First Credit Union. He's been there for 23 years, since 1997. In his position, he's responsible for 3,300 credit union employees serving 1.1 million members in 130 different locations. Prior to joining American First Credit Union, Kent was the director of HR for Larry H. Miller Sports and Entertainment Group. And that's the management company for a lot of brands and businesses that you know of, including the Utah Jazz, the WNBA's Utah Stars, the IHL Golden Eagles, the Delta Center, the KGZZ Television, and a number of other businesses. Kent has had over 30 years of an incredible career in HR. He's also been an adjunct professor at Davis Applied Technology College and at Weber State University. He's been past recipient of many regional and national HR awards. He's been a member and on the board of many, many different community service organizations. He graduated from Brigham Young University with a bachelor's degree in education and holds a master's of public administration degree with an emphasis in HR. And so with all of that, Kent is going to speak to us today about the topic of how do you develop a resume that communicates the right elements and leads to a job interview. Which is that important moment that we all seek when we're looking for that great job opportunity. So we're really privileged to have Kent with us. We appreciate his time. And Kent, with that, let me turn it over to you for today's presentation.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I want to kind of have you take a little trigger in your brain for just a minute. And instead of thinking about your resume as a bunch of words on a piece of paper, what I'd like for you to do is to think about your resume as a piece of art. And a lot of you, if you are inclined to be an artist, I have some kids who are fantastic drawers and artists, and I've watched them over the years as they begin to draw a picture or do something that it's never really done. They are always pulling it back out, and they're always doing a touch here, or as they learn a new technique, they pick up the piece of paper again and do a little change onto their piece of art until they kind of get it to what it really, really looks like. And so I want you to think about your resume as a piece of art today. And if you have access to your resume right now, if you've got it, hopefully maybe even a hard copy sitting in front of you, I want you to reference it, take notes on it as we talk today. But the first thing that I want to state is that no two resumes should be exactly the same, because my philosophy is that your resume is your personality on a piece of paper. And so as you're looking at your resume, does that reflect who you are as a person? Because you can go on to Word and you can use the template that they provided, and you can have that be just like everybody else's. You can, there are a bunch of different programs out there, and you can make yours look exactly like everybody else's. But I think the goal is, when you're doing a resume, is to set your resume apart from somebody else's, and something that is going to be what somebody's going to grab and say, hey, I really like this resume. And so the first bullet point that I want you to remember is that you may not understand or know that your resume is really your first interview. And many times when you turn your resume in, if you're turning it in for a specific job, I'm going to share with you in a minute kind of how that works. And then the second thing is, if you're doing cold calling or just sending your resume in to a company just because, you need to kind of keep some things in mind. So let's talk about the first one. You're applying specifically for a certain job. All right. So you turn that resume in, and usually it would probably be accompanied with an application of some type. And there's two different forks in the road here that we're going to talk about, but I'm going to talk about the first one quickly. Is that resume goes into a pile of resumes with everybody else's. And so, for example, if I'm hiring for a job and I know that let's say I get 35, 40 resumes in for that particular job. There's no way that I can interview 35 or 40 people just even to screen them to get that down to a workable number. So your first interview happens, you're not even present, you're not even there, and you're a stack of paper on top of my desk. The first thing that I do is I look at the job description for that particular job, and then I start going through the resumes to see who has the qualifications to meet the job description that I'm hiring for. And it is as simple as yes or no. And so my job is to try to get that down to a working number. And so let's say the first time I go through the resumes, I get it down to 15. I've cut it from 40 down to 15. Well, that's still a little bit more than I have time to interview for. And so then I pick up the yes pile, and then I go through it again. And this time I'm starting to scrutinize, and this time I'm starting to look at some very specific things. The things that I'm looking for are punctuation. I'm looking for misspelled words. I'm looking for grammar issues. And so you need to keep all those things in mind as you're preparing, because it's not just, the resume is just not a one and done type of thing. You've got to keep working on it. You've got to keep doing it. If I am turning a resume in for a very specific job, you need to make sure that you, as a person, make sure that you try to get hold of the job description for the job that you're applying for. Because every company has its own lingo, it has its own vernaculars that they use. And you want to make sure that your resume uses the same lingo. And so if they have very specific things that they're looking for, you need to go in and change those words to match the job description. The reason being is you don't know if that company is using a computer assisted vetting system. And if your words don't match their words, then your resume is going to be thrown out. And so the point that I'm trying to make is whichever avenue you go down, your resume needs to be very active, and it needs to always be a work in progress, just like a piece of art. It needs to be something that's continually looked at. It's always being done. It's being reflective of what the job is that you're looking for. It's probably not a bad idea to have two working resumes. One could be a general type of resume for cold calling, and then another resume that can be very specific for jobs that are continually being changed and updated. And so if you keep those two things in mind as we're going, you'll understand a little bit better of why sometimes you turn a resume in and you never hear back from anybody. Is because, oh, it just got put into the no pile. And so what is it that's going to set you apart? What is it that's going to do that? And that's what we're going to try to accomplish today. One of the other things that you need to remember is as you're working on your resume, to have as many people look at it that you trust, and to kind of get your feedback from them to say, oh yeah, that looks really nice. And so when I talk about a piece of art, some of the things that I'm looking at are how much white space is around the perimeters and in between. I get a little bit anal with mine. And so, for example, if I'm using bullet points, and I'm going to show you my resume at the end, just so that you can understand some of the things that I'm talking about. But the bullet points, I make sure that the shortest sentences go first and the longest sentences, so that on the right margin, they kind of like make a stair step as they go across. I make sure that like I told you at the beginning, that it really reflects my personality. If I'm, in today's world of electronics, most of us deliver our resumes digitally. But if you're using and delivering your resume paper-wise still, it's important for you to make sure you pick the right paper. I went down one day when I very first started to do this process, and I spent an hour at Staples just looking at the different kinds of papers that they have available. And the paper that I use for mine is very specific because, again, it reflects my personality and what I'm trying to accomplish and what I'm trying to do. So with that said, I'm going to have Brett pull up a sample resume that we're going to use so that I can reference and start talking about some of the stuff that we're going to talk about in sections and refer to this. So the first thing that you want to do.
You want me to pull that up now, Ken?
Yeah, pull
Okay.
up the Joe one. And so let's just start at the very top. If you were to come to me and say, Kent, could you help me with my resume? The first thing that I do is, because you heard I used to be a school teacher, I'll pull out my red pen and I'll start to go through this. And so sometimes it can be a devastating experience, but I try to do it just to help you. So the first thing that you want to make sure that you do is, as you look at the heading, all right, there are important things that are up there, right? That's your contact information. And so you want to make sure that you have all the various different ways that somebody can contact you. Your name should be highlighted. It should be bolded. It should be, in most cases, I would say, even on this sample, I would make my name a little bit bigger because you want it to pop out. You don't want it to get lost in the things that you're doing. And so those would be the things, but that has all the elements that you want to make sure that are on there. The next thing that we do is, when we go down is, and I'm going to kind of talk about education and experience. You reference this and you're in college, When you're in college, your education always goes first. But once you've graduated and started to go out into the working world, then education and experience flip-flop. So I'm going to speak to this today as if you're still in college. So in this particular scenario, education is the first item that you see. And in this case, we're listing Weber State University. You know, give as much detail as you can about which college, which program, whatever the case may be. Bachelor of Science, you can list your major. You know, if you've had, you can put the scholarship here if you want, but there could also be a section down below that you can do. Again, it's up to you. And then relevant coursework as it relates to the jobs that you are performing. And then it shows the date of your graduation. And then I'm going to, even though on this particular one, it says GPA and this has that, I would recommend that you not put your GPA on there. And I'm going to talk for just a second. When you hand something in, right, you're going to make sure that you don't give them any opportunity to discriminate against you. And a GPA is something that they could use for discriminatory purposes, even though you would probably have a hard time being able to prove that. But I know that this particular resume was prepared for admission into Weber State, into a particular college, and so they may want it. But if you're doing one for a job, I would recommend that you not put your GPA on there. If you're working on a master's degree, then your master's degree would be listed first, and then your bachelor's degree would be listed second. Sorry, my screen just went blank, so I've got to re-log in. Okay, and then you notice that as you're listing those types of things, that there's bullet points. And I'm going to make a suggestion to you because the eye is a very sensitive thing, and just little tweaks often can help you set yourself apart, and the reader doesn't even realize that you're doing it. And so the use of font and the use of size are very important. And so, and I'll show you on mine when we get to the end, but I would always say that in the heading, you're going to use, in this case, for example, Weber State University may be a size 14 font. Underneath that, Bachelor of Science may be a 13 and those things. And then the relevant coursework may be a 12. And then the honors would be 11. And then all the things that you do after that and list them would be a 10. And the reason why you do that is because the eye naturally will be drawn and it just naturally reads. And it's a subconscious thing that you don't even realize you're walking the reader through the things that you're doing. Okay, the next part is when we get down to our experience, okay? Make sure that you list, you know, the name of the company, where it's located, your job title of what you were doing. You've got the dates that you worked there. And then again, you've got the relevant experience that you have. And I know that I'm going to say this one way, but I'm going to tell you because it becomes very intricate, is less is more. But when you say less is more, make sure that the things that you're listing are relevant. Make sure that you've got items that you can say, I did this, I raised the revenue by 20%, or by doing this exercise, we lowered our cost, so that you can show. But again, you want to make sure that you're reflecting, you know, if you're in this particular situation, Rainier Financial Group, if you want to go work for another financial group, make sure you get the job description. look at the things that they're looking for, and make sure that you include your experience that you had in those various areas at this particular company so that they can see that you have had that experience using the same buzzwords, the same vernacular that they use at their company. In this particular case, then we look down Wells Fargo Bank, right? Part-time job, Weber State University at the lab. All right, so usually the best practice is if you're a long-term person, you don't put, maybe about 10 to 12 years worth of work experience on there because you don't want it to be cluttered. Okay, the next thing is in this particular resume, they talk about leadership. And again, this resume was prepared to be able to get admission. And so some of the other headings that you may have in there may be leadership, it may be volunteer opportunities, some of those, types of things that you want to have as other, leadership necessarily could be a good one, but there could be other titles that you could use. And again, it's listed and you can see what each one of those are, where they worked, what they did, what the experience was. And then at the bottom, there's skills and that are associated with that. I'm going to remind you again, okay, that it's better and it makes it look cleaner and sharper if you use different size of fonts. Once you pick the font that you are going to, don't change fonts, only change sizes. Okay, let's talk about a one-page resume versus a two-page resume. All right, if you have enough information to make 2 full pages, a 2-page resume is acceptable. But if you don't have 2 full pages, then a 1-page resume. It's not a 1.5-page resume or a 1 3/4 resume. It's either 2 pages or it's 1 page, right? And so notice some of the other things, they've used some lines and stuff like that that are included in that. And so those are some of the highlights. Now I want to have Brett bring up my resume and I want to talk about that for just a minute so that you can see. All right. So I just want to point out again, I don't want anybody to copy mine. This is my resume, and you have to remember that this is a resume that has been being worked on for 30 years. All right. It's taken a lot of time to get it to the way that I like it because it's me. It's my personality on a piece of paper. So you can see at the top there, I've got my name. I've got my credentials. So if in anybody's instance, if you're majoring in HR, then, and you've got some certificates, if you're an accountant and you've got, eventually you can put CPA after your name, you'll add those types of things. And then underneath that line is all my contact information of how you can get hold of me. So because I'm in the workforce, you can see now that experience goes first. All right. And so now I'm listing, and I do it in chronological order of the things that I've done and accomplished. I still stick to the less is more. And so you can see that I've listed those in bullet points. All right. And I've tried, I haven't played with this one for a while. So my staircasing on the right side is not exactly like I would like it, but so that's not a good reflection of that right now, but it just makes it look cleaner and it makes it look wider. So if you move on down to the next section, then you can see on my second page, right? Again, my name is still at the top because if it's a 2-page resume and the front page gets separated from the second page, I want them to be able to match it up, all right? So I've used education. There's my second section. And here's some of the other things that you may look at as ideas, right? I've been a presenter. I've published some newspaper or some stuff in magazines? Which professional affiliations do I have in my membership? What committees, meaning boards of directors, those types of things, have I served on, and in different variety of things. Some honors. So if you've received anything, and that's where honors could also be previously when I referred to you got a scholarship or something, you could put that in that section too. I've listed my skills. And then the other thing that I always like is my interests. And sometimes we call that hobbies. So interest or hobbies is a good thing. And the reason why you want to put that on is to show that you're more of a well-rounded person, so that you have other interests outside of, because you look for that. So that is a very quick and dirty overview of some of the stuff that I look for. You know, the other thing is on the bullet points inside your resume, those are not complete sentences, and therefore periods are not, that's a pet peeve of mine. Periods don't go at the end. Commas are okay, right? Because we use that in the headings. Commas are fine, but you should really look at that. My other pet peeve is that when you conjugate your verbs, you need to make sure that your verbs are always conjugated in the same tense in every section, okay? Your most current job should have present tense verbs, but all the other jobs should all have past tense verbs, all right? So make sure that you do that, and make sure that you don't switch back and forth between your verb tenses. Okay, that should give us just a few minutes for questions. That's my presentation to you very quickly.
Ken, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for doing that. And as everybody knows, this is, by the name, Zoom Career Bites. In 30 minutes, we just have a chance to go get a snapshot on that. But there's some good questions that have come up. Ken, let me serve some of these up to you. So the first question is, even if the GPA is above 3.9, you know, you talked about not listing the GPA. What about if I say something like summa cum laude? Is that okay to put on there if I'm not listing my GPA?
Yes, that would be great. And I would put that in a section of honors, or, you know, or something like that. I think that's acceptable.
Okay. The next question is it bad to use color on a resume? And I will add to that, sometimes people will want to use their photographs on a resume.
Okay. The previous statement that I made about not putting your GPA on so that they can discriminate against you, that's a picture does exactly the same thing. Okay. A picture gives them an opportunity to discriminate. And as much as we want to think that in today's world that doesn't happen, I'm sorry to say that I have people that I know that still do that. And so if you have a generic gender neutral first name, and you know, and I'll just use Kelly, for example, because that could be a boy or a girl name, right? And you submit your resume and then you put your picture on it, and the guy doesn't like women Kellys, and you know, then you're never going to get the opportunity. Or if they don't like Asian people, or if they don't like African Americans, you're just giving them the opportunity to discriminate against you. And so I would say absolutely no picture on your resume.
How about using colored fonts on a resume, or colored
fonts? I'm not necessarily opposed to, except for that if they're coming across digitally and electronically, sometimes those things don't come across very well in the intent that you were trying to make it. And so my recommendation is that you try to stick with black, just because that's, you have less problems about your resume coming across non-ski-wampus.
Okay, great. The next question is, do you write an overview on your resume? It used to be a common practice but maybe that's out of fashion now. And I think what they're referring to is at the top of the resume, do I list an objective statement? Do I list an overview summarizing my skills and who I am?
Okay. My personal opinion is a resume is the resume like I've presented to you today. Statements like that are more appropriate for a cover letter, and that's where they should be, because your I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? The amount of space that you have available on your resume is so finite that you want to make sure that you've got the most important things on there, and that is more appropriate for a cover letter.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question says, when switching fields, how do you know the skills in your current job translate to the new field? For example, if switching from physical therapy, which is a direct care position, to medical records, which is a managerial administrative position?
I would say that, again, you've got to go back to the job description, and you are the one who's going to know that. And granted, I don't know a lot about that field, but I'm going to tell you, for example, because your kinesiology stuff that you have to do, your vocabulary that you've already picked up as a physical therapist is going to translate. And that's a big thing if you're, going into the other side of it, that, just look at the commonalities and find the things that will translate across. But you always have to start with the job description, and you may have to be creative. Don't lie, but make sure that you don't overlook and think outside the box. What did I do as a physical therapist that is going to help me? I've already been exposed to the medical world. There are things in there that I can translate. You just have to find them. And usually the first place to start is with the job description.
Okay, great. I'll just add to that, reinforce a point that you made earlier within that, is that you really need to know the language with the company that you are going to work for. And the best way is to be able to get a job description, as Kent talked about, and using that language. You may look in your resume and you may look at the job description, and you may be using different words and you think, they're synonymous, they mean the same thing. It doesn't work like that, because either if a computer system is scanning it, they're looking for exact words, or if a person is re-scanning it visually, they're looking to pick up those exact words. And so get it in the right language. And then I think that would also come back on this question, is helping to, when I'm transitioning, helping me to make sure that I've got the right terms as I'm changing skill sets.
Correct.
The next question is actually one that I will take. The question is there a way you could send out your resume to have you critique it? So we're not going to have Kent critique it, but if you'll send it your resume, if you want some perspective on that, send it to me. And then I will, if it falls within the School of Business, which I'm in, I can give it feedback. And also, if not, I can send it out to other advisors like myself that are in different colleges, different departments, and I can then have them give you some feedback. So for that, if you want your resume, you want to send something to me, my email is Brett Merrill. So BRETTMERRELL at Weber.edu. So Brett Merrill at Weber.edu, and then we can help with that. The next question is, how do you make it look so clean in columns? I think they're referring to your resume there, Kent.
Oh, mine is, I don't use a template. Mine is all, freehand is not the correct word, but I've just taken mine and worked with it. It's in Word, but I don't use a template. Mine is all created from scratch. And so I just make sure that that's how I do it.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, do you recommend that you use action verbs to start each bullet point for accomplishments and quantifying accomplishments when possible?
I would say yes, but whatever, it kind of goes back to the same thing about verb tense, is make sure you've got a system and that you're following that system. You know, if you're going to do verbs, then start with verbs. If you're not, then don't. But don't jump back and forth. Make sure that you're uniform in what you're doing.
Okay. The next question, if you do not have relevant work history as a student or a new grad, would you like to see other areas as relevant projects, such as co-curricular activities, clubs, leadership roles, sports, volunteer work? So if I'm applying for a job and I don't have the work experience that matches up, but if I have other things on my resume that tie, should I have more of an emphasis upon those?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say more of an emphasis, but it's definitely not discouraged to put it on, because you are trying to sell yourself. And so you want to use every aspect of your life to show that you've had experience. Maybe you didn't get paid for a job. Maybe you did it as a volunteer and you still have the experience. So you want to make sure you highlight that.
Okay. So Nick, these are good questions. Thank you very much for you submitting them in here. And so I think this comes back to a previous question, may be tied, but the question is, do I write an objective? Says I still have one on my current resume. So at the top of my resume, do a objective statement. And Kent, what you referred to earlier was, if you're trying to really utilize that space on your paper, then having summaries at the top may not make sense. How about objective statements?
The same. An objective is the more appropriate place for it is in a cover letter, because that's the objective. I'm sending you this resume, you know, and that should be one of the first two sentences in your cover letter. My objective is to get a job with your company in this particular, you know, field. So that should be the cover letter. I just personally feel that the space is so valuable on your resume that it needs to be resume stuff, and save that stuff for your cover letter.
So let me add to that. Ken's statement is, when you write an objective, a lot of times your objective is a very broad statement. And so if that's the very first thing that someone reads is a very general statement, it comes across as that you're not focused and you don't know what you want. But then you run the error if you go to the other extreme. If you write a very, very specific objective statement about a specific job, the recruiter may look at that and say, well, we don't have what they want. We have other jobs that they fit well, but obviously they're not interested. And so it's kind of like balancing on the tip of a pin. It's very hard to do versus being too broad or too narrow. And so rather than running that risk, and again, if it's your very first part on the resume and it sets the tone for the resume, today we typically drop that off. You provide that detail that you want in the cover letter, and then just be very focused with your resume.
And I'll give you a good example of what he just said. Is my daughter-in-law graduated, and she's a chemical engineer, and she applied for a job at a different company than the one she was working at, and she put it in, and she ended up getting hired by that company, but not for the chemical engineer job that she applied for. She got hired to be a safety engineer at the company she works for. And so you just never know. And the reason why was because when her hiring manager read her resume, he's like, I really like what you've done, and I like your experience. And so if she would have focused and said, you know, I'm just only applying for chemical engineering jobs, then they would have never given her the chance for this other one. So it happens out there.
Great, thank you. So Ken, the following question is one that a lot of students have. They're talking about, when I list all of my job experience, if I have job experience that is not relevant to the position that I'm applying for, should I list it? Or do I feel like I have to go show everything that I reveal, make sure that they see what a hard worker I am and all that I do? So Nat, what job experience should I be listing on my resume?
I think number one, you want to make sure that you don't have any gaps in your employment. All right. And so I would say, yes, you list it, But if you look at mine, you'll notice that not under every of my jobs do I list bullet points of things that I did at that job. Does that make sense? So I'm only taking up 2 lines. If it's an irrelevant job, then I'm still going to list it so that they can see that I had work experience and I don't have a gap in my work history, but I didn't list any of the bullet points underneath. And so that's how I would recommend that you would go about doing that to see. Now, if you look at mine, and I was applying to be an adjunct professor again at Weber State, and you notice some of those ones at the bottom don't have any bullet points that show teaching or anything like that, then I would redo my resume and I would brush up and add bullet points to those sections, because I want them to see that I've taught, that I've done. This is my experience in the classroom.
Let me add to that, is that sometimes when someone is just out of, just starting their undergrad, that they may have a job, they may have a couple of jobs, and let's say one job is working at 7-Eleven for the summer for a couple of months. That type of job probably isn't relevant what you're applying for, and it's such a short amount of time that that's one that you could probably leave off if you've got other things to show, if you've got other relevant, if you've got other work experience at the same time. So there's another question that ties into that, Kent, is that if I have gaps of employment on my resume, how do I handle that? For example, I've had alumni that and students that come to me and say, I graduated from Weber State University, and then I was home taking care of my kids, raising kids for 10 years, and now I'm getting back into the work field. What do I do? How do I show that on my resume?
Okay. I think that it's not, that will happen all the time. And so I think you just need to be prepared to discuss it and to make sure that you know, that would be something I would put in a cover letter, is explain I've been out of the workforce for a while, you know, and if you want to say managing a household. But my little baby sister called me the other day because she just graduated, and she had the same question, as I'm ready to go back into the workforce. And we talked about it, and, you know, and she taught piano lessons all the whole time that she was a stay-at-home mom. And so I said, she had forgotten them. I said, put in, you taught piano lessons, you know, and show that you did that and managed. So there's other ways to work around it. But I think if you have a literal gap in there, just make sure that you include that in a cover letter, that you're getting back into the workforce, and that you're, you know, that your degree is still relevant, and that's the things. But be prepared to talk about it and just be open and honest about what it is done, because I get it, you know, it takes a lot to manage a household. So you have valuable experience. You just have to learn how to relate it back to the workforce.
I think that Ken's got a really good point, is that you shouldn't underestimate the experience that you gain. You may not be in the traditional workforce, but if you belong to community or civic or church organizations, the PTA, whatever it may be.
You're a room mother, you know.
Room mother, there's service, there's planning, there's organization. People are looking for the skills that you have. They can come from a lot of backgrounds, but if you can communicate what you did, what you accomplished, that can help you explain some of those things that you may perceive to be gaps when really they may not be. And the interviews are a great place for that, and you can also explain that in your cover letter. With that, there's a lot of other questions, but we need to wrap this up, just so make sure that we keep in the time limits that we promised you. One thing that I want to come back and clarify is for those Weber State students and alumni that you can go use Handshake if you have questions, and if you want to submit your resume for reviews to the advisors. Certainly, if you are not aware of Handshake, you're not sure how to get it done, you can email it to me. Or best way to get that direct connection is to go onto Handshake and reach out the advisor that's connected with the major that you graduated or the major that you currently hold. Now, this has been fantastic. Ken, America First Credit Union is a wonderful, great company, and you see your thumbprints all over it, from hiring and from developing people. I know we have our students that go to work there, they're there for a long time. If anybody on this call is interested in working for your company, what's the best way to go and look at open positions or to see what the opportunities there are?
We post all of our jobs on our website. So if you just go to americafirst.com and look in the About tab across the top, and then there will be a career section. That's where we post all of our jobs. So we have an online application, and you just need to complete that, and you can upload your resume, and we're good.
You know, for those students that are still taking classes and looking for work opportunities, one thing that America First does tremendously well is giving you opportunities while you're in school, and then they promote and move you up as you go along. And then as you graduate, they'll promote and move you up. And they really like to grow from within so they can see that proven skill set. And so you understand the company. So Ken, this has been fantastic. What a great way to kick off our first webinar for Zoom Career Bites. You've given a lot of great inspiration. It's a lot of good practical things that sometimes we miss when we're developing our resumes. When we get a resume, we're creating it. Oftentimes we get so close to it that we miss some of these practical elements that are there. And you've given great advice, and one part advice that I reinforce is when you get your resume and you've got it where you think it should be, have people that you trust critique it. Welcome feedback. Feedback is a gift. And so if you're missing something, and it may be some bullet points not clear, or you've got bad grammar or bad punctuation, or you misspelled something wrong, it's so much better to have a friend or family member call that out than for someone at the company that you're applying for to see it, because that, once they see that, that can be a stopping point. They may think that if you can't get your spelling right, then how can I trust you to manage my money? And so just reach out for that opportunities. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this session. Kent, you're awesome. Appreciate your help.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
All right. Bye-bye.